All right, happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you so much, Karuna, for that really wonderful sharing. Our meditation subject today is right on time. And the topic comes, well, the saying comes from a gospel song that I really love. And it's called He's an On-Time God. And the line, right on time, is in the song. And when I heard it, I just got super excited. Like, yes, God is always on time. Pure love is always on time. And thank God for that, right? Pure love exists before time. Before we got here in these bodies, we were cradled by pure love itself. Pure love steps with us in the present. Right? It exists. It's what lingers when time passes away. God is always on time. And I thought about this. I've thought about my own life and how I have had moments where it seems like the wings of the divine swoop in to catch me at the exact moment where I think that I might fall. Right? Where things feel unsteady, uncertain. And it's like, wow, thank you, Lord. I thought I was going to take a tumble. So there is that entry point, that there is that perspective of what it means for God to always be on time. But there is another entry point, and it's this. Whether we feel as if we're about to take a tumble, or if we feel completely steady in our walk, love is there with us, and it's unfolding perfectly. The timing is always perfect. It's not that God is just swooping in to catch us when we fall. God is always with us. It just becomes pretty obvious in those moments when we're falling. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you for catching me. But the truth is, there's never a breath, there's never a moment where the timing isn't perfect, where you're not right on time. So that's a whole other entry point. You're also always right on time. Your unfolding is right on time. Humanly, right, if I say to you, what is time? We all have our human definition of time. I Googled it. There are like 3 different definitions. Scientists are debating what time is. Some scientists say that time is a measurement of change. Isn't that really interesting? So it's a progression of events in a sequential order. And time is how we measure that change. Some scientists say it's a complete illusion. There's no such thing as change or time because it's all happening in the mind, right? So we're going to lean into that definition because that's what the yogic teachings say as well, right? Yesterday, I was having a conversation with my sister. I'm going to tie this back. I'm going to back this into time. My sister came to visit me, and we were having a conversation about our childhood. So it was a really delicious conversation. We were laughing, and she shared some things from her perspective. Same event, but her perspective of that event was a little different from my perspective of that event. And we were both there. It was the same event. And then there were other moments where she's telling the story and she was the main character of the story. Like, yeah, you remember I did this thing? And I'm like, I thought I did that thing. From my perspective, like, I was the one doing that. And then there were other stories that she would tell. And she's like, you don't remember this? Like, you were right there. I'm like, no, I don't remember that at all. So I bring that up to connect it to time. So time is something that is unfolding in a human way for each of us in a different type of way. So we have, we can say the past, we can say the present, we can say the future. The past and the future only exist in our minds. It only exists in our minds. It's memory. It's mind chatter. So my sister Her past is existing in her mind, and it's unfolding in the way that she remembered it. My past existed in my mind, and it's unfolding in the way that I remember it. We were both in the same situation, but we process the information differently because experience is filtered in through our perception, right? And so we can all be in the same space, 100 people in the same room, 100 different experiences. 100 different experiences. So for today, we're going to call that an expression of time that is time bound, right? When we have time bound or an attachment to that which is time bound, that's where we can get into the space of feeling like things aren't perfect. Like this is not on time. Right? Okay, Lord, you told me the train would be here at 10:05. It is 10:10. What's going on? Right? What's the train for you? Maybe it's career related. Maybe it's about your family. It's expectation about, I need this thing to unfold in this way. And then my timing is perfect. Time-bound consciousness is also about, it's about an attachment to my personal will. This is what I need, right? However, we're going to orient ourselves towards that which is timeless. So I have a couple of stories here that will help us do that. And timelessness, that's like that Celine Dion song, My Heart Will Go On. It's forever. It's actually like that song is the soundtrack of our life. It's just like playing in the background, every single thing that we do. Love goes on. It's eternal, right? Joy goes on. It's eternal. Whatever the experiences that are showing up for us. So one of the stories that I have for us today is probably familiar to you. It's the story of Daniel in the den of lions. I found this in the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. And so Daniel, the time that this story takes place, Jerusalem had been subjugated to Babylon. And so Babylon is another civilization at this time. And then Babylon had been subjugated by Persia. So when they arrived in Israel, the Babylonians, they took over and they brought Daniel with them as a captive. And Daniel becomes an advisor to the king. So at this point in the story, Daniel is one of 3 administrators out of the king's 120 satraps. So satraps are advisors, right? So you can imagine there are 120 of them. And then there are 3 who manage the advisors. And the satraps are jealous of Daniel. Daniel finds a lot of favor with the king. Let's see if I can find here a statement that sort of explains this. It says, Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. And the satraps, they're not feeling that. Like, who's this foreigner, that's coming here that the king wants to appoint over the entire kingdom? So what they decide to do is tell the king, hey, I think we should pass an edict that says that you can only pray for the next 30 days to the king. You can't pray to God. You can't pray to any objects, anything at all. And the reason that they wanted to pass this edict is very intentional, because Daniel was a lover of God. He prayed 3 times a day. It was almost like the law was exclusively against him. The king wasn't feeling it. He really liked Daniel, but he did it anyway on the advice of his satraps. So the law is passed, and when it's passed, all of the satraps immediately go to Daniel's house. Daniel is in prayer. He opens his windows and he faces Jerusalem 3 times a day to pray. So he's in violation of the law. They capture him, and because he broke the law, he's placed in the lion's den, right? We might all be familiar with this. So in the lion's den, he's there overnight. The next day, the king comes, the satraps comes. Daniel is untouched. He's unscathed. And so it ended up that the satraps, because of their poor advice, they end up in the lion's den, and they are unfortunately consumed. Now in this story, I really love this story because it's hinting, it's highlighting a few things about time-bound consciousness and timelessness consciousness. And we can start with the satraps. So the satraps represent that which is within each of us when we operate from time-bound consciousness that feels that we need to control conditions. I don't like this. This isn't right. I need to take action. I need to do something. And so they try to manipulate conditions, right? By going to the king, by passing this edict. It doesn't end up working out in their favor. And so the thing is, when we're operating from that space of my will, of attachment to limitation, to mental patterns, to thoughts, to concepts, to ideas, it eventually consumes us, right? And that's sort of like what the lions in this story represent, right? That which can consume us through our attachment to it. We're not aware that we are attached to it. And then the king, God bless the king. The king, he does not even want to imprison Daniel. It's not what he's guided to do. His heart is telling him to do something else, right? So how many of us have ever taken action in opposition to the guidance of our hearts? How many of us have done that? So the king is representing those moments, which again is operating from time-bound consciousness. And often we're not listening to the guidance of our heart because of the desire to manipulate circumstances. I need it to be like this. My guidance is telling me this, but I'm not trusting that. That doesn't feel like the right way, right? And when we do that, when we're not listening to the guidance of our heart, we create suffering for others and for ourselves. The king was agonized the night that Daniel was in the den. It was not a joyful experience for him, right? And so one way that we orient ourselves on this path as we walk as humans is to listen to the truth within us. To listen to the truth within us. And then Daniel, he's representing the energy of timelessness. So I read an excerpt from this Zen master. His name is Song Sun. And he talks about time and how time is also just the progression of events that are changing. And he said that he had a student who asked him, or said to him rather, "This is super confusing to me. What do you mean that, we're time-bound but existing with timelessness? Or we're in movement, but we're also constantly and perpetually still." So he gave an example that I just love that I wanted to share, and I'll read an excerpt of it. This is from his book, The Compass of Zen. So the example that he used to describe this is probably familiar as well to some of you. He said that when you go to the movie theater, you're watching a movie. On the movie screen, there's actors, there's good guys, there's bad guys, there's like speeds, chase scenes, there's bank robberies, there's life happening, all sorts of things are happening. However, it's really just a frame on a reel, moving in succession, really quickly. So the movement is coming from stillness itself. Nothing's happening at all. So this is how he describes it. He says the world is impermanent. Everything is always changing, moving, nonstop. Even 1 second of our lives seems full of so much movement and change in this world that we see. But your mind right now is like a lens whose shutter speed is 1 divided by infinite time. We call that moment mind. If you attain that mind, then this whole world's movements stop. From moment to moment, you can see this world completely stop. Like the film, you perceive every frame, this moment, which is infinitely still and complete. In the frame, nothing is moving. And so what he means by the frame is, if you think about like those older movie projectors that you needed the film on and you would feed the film into the projectors, that is the frame. So the frame is moving. The brain is like that projector, which is processing the information. It creates the movement, right? But the frame itself is not moving. You can touch that stillness. You can connect with that stillness. You can walk with that stillness. You can dance with that stillness. You can work with that stillness. You can be in your families with that stillness. It's actually the only thing. And so when we learn how to still the waters of the mind, that projector, that's how we see, it's the mind that's creating the perception of movement, right? It's the mind that says, I am attached to X, Y, and Z, right? That energy of my will. I'll finish his quote. There is no time, and nothing appears or disappears. But this movie projector, your thinking mind, is always moving around and around and around. So you experience this world as constantly moving, and you constantly experience change, which is impermanence. You lose moment mind by following your conceptual thinking, believing that it is real. So what do we do? What do we do when, for most humans, the movement feels incredibly real? When we do feel bound by time, we're in these human bodies. These bodies will decline, they will pass away. So how do we connect to true reality? I have a quote here from Proverbs that will launch us into that. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. So this is what Daniel exemplified, right? Daniel's country is subjugated twice, right? That's sort of representing this impermanence. 1 minute things are this way, the next minute things are that way, the next minute things are that way. Through it all, Daniel turned his attention towards Jerusalem, the promised land, that which is on high. We're invited to always set our sights on the highest, on the best, in any experience. Look to God. Swami says it all the time, I love it so much. Go straight to God. Whatever the circumstances, whatever seems to be the shifting sands of impermanence, go straight to God. In the lion's den, Daniel turned to God. He put his total faith in God. And now this is taking us from time-bound timelessness to understanding our own divine timing. Right? Knowing that every step I take is illuminated by light. It becomes like a nice little dance. I don't have anything to worry about. Nothing can touch me. The lions of circumstance cannot touch me. I'm in the den like, untouchable, unmarred, loved. One thing Karuna talked about that I just love so much is that we're invited to love whatever shows up. See, what happens is, as we walk through this human life, we encounter things that will evoke within us aversion, distaste. We look in a mirror, we don't like what we see. We gaze out on the world, we don't like what we see. The invitation is to love it. That is what frees us from the consciousness of the time-bound. Time-bound, you are bound, clink, clink. It bounds you to your own limitation. So love it all, right? I've heard Swami say, like, just kiss it like a boo-boo. Love all of it. Love your wounds. Love what you call the wounds of the world. This is what frees us. This is how we reside in the consciousness of that which is timeless. Love, love, love. We're invited to reside in the present moment. If we're thinking about the past, it's happening right here in the present moment. We're creating, we're projecting that. If we're considering the present, it's happening, the future, it's happening right here in the present moment. We're just using our minds, right? So I did have a meditation. I'm looking at the time. I did have a meditation. I think I'm going to do it in 5 minutes. We can do this. All right, so I'm going to sit for this meditation. And I, invite all of us to connect with this meditation at any time if we feel bound by experience that has happened in the past, or if we feel bound by what we perceive or expect to happen in the future, right? Because time itself is an illusion. It's not linear in the way that we often think of it. There is no arrow of time forever flowing forward. There's only right now. There's only right now. And what we greet with the now, how we greet the now. Are we greeting the now with our heads bowed in total surrender, like Proverbs, the verse I just read, which says to put our total faith, trust in the Lord. Submit to him, and he will make your path straight in all circumstances, in all conditions? Or are we greeting it with resistance? Are we tight? And we can actually ask ourselves that. If we are greeting the present with resistance, you can feel it in your body. The body communicates with us. You might notice a tension. You might notice yourself holding back. Figure out for yourself what the cues are. Everything here is here to help us. And so if we only tune in, if we only listen, if we only learn to understand the language of love, because that's all experience is, it's speaking the language of love. We are actually fluent in it. We're just remembering that. See how it shows up for you. Okay, so this meditation, I'm going to walk us through very quickly. And I invite, everybody, if you like, to come back to it at another time. So I invite you to connect with your feet on the earth and just notice your breath. We're going to connect here, now, with that timeless energy of love, of upliftment, of grace, of devotion, of embrace, of those sweet kisses. And I want you to see yourself on a path. And this path is totally illuminated. So think of the brightest, whitest, most dazzling, illuminating light that you can imagine. That's this path. This path has been laid before you. In consciousness, all is already done. And notice how that light from the path travels up your legs. See your legs becoming like that light. Allow it to travel up the body and to fill you completely. To flow now down the shoulders and out through the fingertips. Let it fill your throat. Let it fill your head. See yourself totally illuminated, brilliant, bright. And now I want you to bring to mind the warmest, safest, most awesome embrace you've ever felt. A hug from a friend, from a partner. Maybe it's when someone you love look at you. Whatever it is, bring that feeling within you. And now let that feeling spread. It will feel like a smile, like a bright, warm sun on your skin. It will feel like fireworks inside of you. And now begin to stroll on your path, this road of light. And up ahead, on your path, also brilliantly illuminated, I want you to see yourself. I want you to see an event, an experience from your past that you feel ready to shower with kisses, that you feel ready to embrace, that you feel ready to move beyond, that you feel ready to allow to float away in the river of consciousness. And take a moment to see it on your path. And connecting now with that energy of the smile, with that energy of love, of the embrace that we connected with, I want you to shower like rain that energy on this experience, on you, in what we call the past. Because there is really only this right now moment. Here is where all healing is. Here's where all transformation is. And we can bring this into the heart and love it and thank it. And know that it too exists within the consciousness of divine timing. And you might notice a lightness within yourself. Maybe you feel like taking a breath, a release, and continuing on the path now. Every step illuminated, a pep in your step. I want you to see just ahead an experience that you have concern for or worry about or consideration for that is upcoming. So maybe you have a meeting coming up or a conversation with a friend. Take a moment to bring that to mind. And we're going to shower this experience in that same love, that same warmth, and allow it to be illuminated. And allow it to be pregnant, to be ripe with that feeling of perfection. And see what you notice. All power, all love is right here with us. And the invitation, as we walk on this human path, which is always illuminated, is to greet whatever shows up with love, with understanding, knowing that pure love, pure consciousness, God, is always right on time. At the level of the soul, we have come here with exuberance, excitement, and absolutely ready to greet it all everything that shows up is by invitation at the level of the soul. And so, if ever we feel that we are in the lion's den, we are invited to connect here, in this place of spaciousness, of light, of timelessness. Amen.